I recently saw the horror movie Lee Cronin's The Mummy. It's called The Mummy and it's by Lee Cronin, so it's Lee Cronin's The Mummy. It came out in 2026 and I recently saw it in theaters. And I really haven't seen a horror movie in theaters since like Smile in 2022. And Smile was a really good horror movie. They made a second one, I heard it's even scarier, but I haven't seen that one yet. Horror movies are kind of a different movie watching experience. Dare I say, the theater experience for horror movies is like in a completely separate category than like normal theater movies. Because no regular movie can get you as emotionally stimulated as a horror movie can, unless it's like a really good normal movie. But with great power comes great responsibility, and most horror movies use that power very cheaply. This movie, The Mummy by Lee Cronin, I would say kind of leans towards that cheaply using its power. However, it is still a decent horror movie. Is it a good movie? Definitely not, but it's a decent horror movie. I watched it with a friend, and he described it as a one-night stand that you wake up the next morning and you don't regret it, but you also wouldn't do it again. And I kind of agree, that is kind of the vibe of this movie. So I'd say it was decent, but it had its problems. So let's break them down and find out also what this movie did good. And we're first gonna start off with the problem, and this is a big problem for a lot of horror movies, and it's that everybody in this movie was really dumb, like not smart at all, or not even making normal decisions that a normal average person would make. They made specifically dumb decisions. I'm thinking about this insane scene where this mom, she's cutting her daughter's like toenails, and okay, it's gonna get gory, guys. It's gonna get gory, so this movie is gory, so if you don't like gore, or don't like me describing gore, click off of this video. But the mom cuts her daughter's toenail, and the toenail comes off, and then it rips off a ton of her skin on her leg, and then the daughter like attacks her and starts stabbing a fire poker into her leg. And you know what their reaction is? Their reaction is just put a bandage on it and keep living life as normal. In this movie, they would see some supernatural shit and just keep going about their day, or see some unhinged, definitely crazy shit and just be, you know what, she's my daughter, I love her, gotta stay in this house, even if it's not the best place for her. And I wanna get more into that later, but the next really dumb part was the daughter, when she was a kid and she first got kidnapped, she was given this candy, and this candy was like her favorite candy, and the kidnapper gave her this candy, and that was kind of like one of the evidence towards her being kidnapped. And then later on in the movie, we find out that the kidnapper's daughter sends a letter with the literal picture of the candy she got kidnapped with. And the way the letter is written is super sus. It is crazy that they just locked away that letter and didn't report it to the police. There's also this really dumb scene where the daughter, they just got the daughter back. She's been comatose for like 8 years, and they have like a 2-minute scene of the mom and the dad dragging her up the stairs in this wheelchair in the most obnoxious way possible. Just in general, this movie was full of like classic dumb horror movie people. And it was kind of the motivation for their dumbness really didn't make any sense. It was like the mom wanted her daughter in her house, which I understand, and I get that point. But there's also a point where you love your daughter so much that you realize you can't take the proper care of her, so you give her to some place who is more professionally trained to handle your daughter, who's obviously going through some crazy shit. Like, it came to a point where if this daughter was just having mental problems and she wasn't having anything supernatural, the mom would have been acting really selfish, that she thinks that she could handle this mentally challenged individual by herself, not professionally trained, and it was just hurting her own daughter. Her own daughter got so many injuries purely caused by herself. The mom and the dad and the family is not equipped to handle this level of mental challenge and self-harm and self-attacking. So that kind of gets out of the characters. Then I also had a problem with the pacing of this movie. This pacing of this movie was so neck-breaking. There was no smoothness at all, no ease at all, no artisan at all. This was just a purely neck-breaking, neck-jerking, pacing movie. It felt like a roller coaster, but not one of those smooth ones that have the grip all the way around the railing and it's just smooth roller coaster going upside down and shit. It felt like you're on one of those roller coasters that is wooden and just metal, and it's basically a train with extra steps, and every time you turn, you jerk your head. That's how it felt like in this movie. There would be an absolutely horrifying scene, and then the next scene, it would just be a chill time or some lore drop, like an absolutely crazy horror scene, then a lore drop. And there's a time that this is blatant in the movie. And this also has a problem with the time scaling and the pacing, time scaling and pacing. And it's a time when the youngest daughter kind of gets demonized by the mummy daughter. And this younger daughter like hears her talking inside the door and like puts her ear up to the door and then starts to run away and gets force lifted and converted into a demon. And all this is implied happening upstairs while the dad is doing some detective work, I guess, because his lights are kind of going crazy and he's like, oh, what the hell? I hear a commotion upstairs. What the hell's going on? But then after the dad notices crazy shit's going on, it just cuts to him the next day going to the professor and asking him stuff about his daughter's condition. And then he was like looking at letters at the time when this crazy shit was going on above him and lights were flashing and shit, and he's looking at letters, and then it cuts to presumably hours later where he photocopies these letters and sends it to the Egyptian detective. I was watching this thinking that he was going to go upstairs and maybe challenge or see what was going on with his daughters, but no, they just like time skipped after that for no reason. They didn't even explain if the daughter was actually converted into a demon until the next day when it time skipped to her at school and acting sus. And the dad going to the professor and getting lore dropped kind of gets into my third problem, and that's this story and the context and the lore of this entire movie. It was over-explained, or at least explained a lot, but also still felt vague. It was the weirdest thing. You get like a 15-minute lore drop, but then by the time they're done with this lore drop, you still don't know what the hell they're talking about. And there was no actual theme of this entire movie. They hint at themes, but they never fully explore themes. And I am a hater of people who hint at themes and don't actually fully explore it. For example, they hint at some greater message of the dad feeling guilt about his daughter getting kidnapped underneath his nose, and in the end he like sacrifices himself. But then throughout the film, they're saying it's not really the dad's fault. It was kind of just an unfortunate circumstances, and the mom doesn't even blame the dad at all. It's hinted at. The dad thinks that she blames him, but it's never confirmed, or the mom never even says that she blames the dad. And if they were trying to explore blame and these parents blaming each other, they never really explore that either, because they just forget about that the ending half of the movie, and there's only like one scene where there's drama between the mom and the dad about blaming each other, and then it's just forgotten about. I had no idea what type of message they were trying to send with these themes. Specifically, I'm talking about a theme about religion. They tried to say a theme about religion where the mummy is like kind of antagonistic and hates that the grandma is saying prayers. Like she literally attacks the grandma while she's saying a prayer for the granddaughter. And then she also chokes the grandma with a rosary, but they make no signs or don't explain at all why this mummy would hate Jesus or religion at all. They don't explain that at all. There's zero context to why she's mad at religion or whatever. They hint that the daughter sees the grandma praying and it kind of reminds her of the magician saying, magic words towards her, but that's not explained at all because it's kind of the mummy and the demon who's there and not the girl the girl's not inside, it's the demon right now. And so it's just really vague and not deep at all about their ideas with religion and the themes they're trying to tell with religion. There was no connection at all, even though they tried to explain it like that. And with the lore, they spent probably, I want to say 30 minutes of this movie, probably like a quarter of this movie, explaining the lore of the mummy, how the mummy became, how the mummy's trapped, what's going on with this family, why the daughter was kidnapped, all this stuff. They explain all this lore about the mummy and the kidnapping and all this, but they never actually even explain the whole point of this mummy. It's like describing a casserole, but then not telling you what the name of the casserole is at the end. Because by the end of their 30-minute lore explanation of this mummy, I have no idea if this mummy is some type of curse that will be expanded upon the world and released upon the world if they don't trap a young daughter in the tomb or trap somebody in the tomb to keep that spirit there. I don't know if it got released onto the world, if something bad would happen. They don't explain that, but they also hint that this curse only affects the family who's trapping it, and this family's only trapping the demon inside this sarcophagus because the demon would only attack their family. So I don't know if the family is being selfish in trapping this random daughter in their mummy form, or if this family is saving the world. They don't really say anything about that point, because in the end, the woman, the magician lady, is kind of punished for her actions. But if she was protecting the world, why would she get punished for actions? So would it be that this demon really only attacks the magician lady's, like the bad lady's family? Is that what is going on? Is the demon going to be released upon the world? They really don't explain anything or actually go into the stakes of the movie, even though they lore drop for a quarter of it. But those are my biggest problems with this movie, guys. There is a lot of them, and they are pretty bad problems. But I did have some positives, some actually pretty good positives that if you like horror movies, you might consider watching this movie. And I'm going to get into those, don't worry. But I just want to quickly ask you to scroll down, hit that like button, and hit that subscribe button. And if you're enjoying this video, leave a comment as well. And if you're especially enjoying this video and you love this type of content and you love horror movies, I need you to hit that share button and send it directly to somebody you think would appreciate this video the most. Guys, thank you so much for subscribing, and thank you so much for making it this far. I really appreciate you for making it this far. And I really appreciate you for sitting through this Mummy movie review. Because if you're surviving through that Mummy movie and you're watching this Mummy review, you must like this type of content. So hit that subscribe button and comment something nice. Guys, thank you so much for doing that. Now let's get into what I actually did like about this movie, because I did like some things about this movie. And the first one is, this movie was actually really emotionally stimulating. I kind of talked about this before, but this movie felt like it was an hour and a half when it was 2.5 hours. There wasn't, and this could be seen as a flaw, but I kind of viewed it as a positive just because of the quality of the movie. But there was no time in this movie where you could just sit down and relax. Like there's one time where they're doing like a lore dump where you can sit down and kind of relax that they're doing a lore dump. But no other part of the movie could you just sit back and relax, because there's always new action, new horror coming down. And this is not explained more, this craziness and this stimulation of emotions is not explained more than the scene where the grandma dies. The grandma is like giving prayers to her granddaughter, who's the mummy, and then the mummy freaks out and attacks the grandma, and the mummy force chokes the grandma with a rosary. And first off, that's crazy. And the grandma's like floating, and the mummy's Fortnite dancing on her, basically. And the grandma's choking for her life, about to die from choking. And then she gets thrown out the window with the rosary. Grandma thrown out the window, 2 stories, falls directly on to the dad's car. And the grandma's dying on the hood of his car. And he's like, oh shit. The daughter's laughing in the back. And you're like, what the hell? And then she slides off the car. And you're like, oh shit. Like what? Is she still alive? She was still like kind of breathing on the car, even though she got choked and then thrown off a 2-story building onto his car. She's still alive. So the dad tries to open his car, and then boom, there's wolves. And then you're like, oh shit, there's wolves there. And then cut to the wolves opening up the grandma and eating her guts right on screen while she's still alive. And it zooms in on her face, and you're like, oh shit. Like there was crazy shit going down, and you couldn't even like fathom what was going down. You're just watching it with awe, like, holy, who came up with this shit? And then that wasn't even the end of it. The next scene, it's the funeral scene. She's dead. The grandma's dead now. And they're having a family funeral. There's the grandma's friends there. They're gossiping. People are eating appetizers. And then probably 2 minutes later, the youngest daughter's pulling out her teeth. The other mummy daughter's crawling through the roof, crawls on the roof. Crazy shit's going down. The daughter is like attacking the daughter attacks a priest. Then the mummy daughter starts eating the grandma. It was just crazy shit. Back-to-back crazy shit. And crazy shit kind of gets on to what I also liked was that they were very creative with the gore. I know people don't like gore. The buddy who I saw the movie with, he didn't like gore, but it was so creative with the gore where you kind of have to respect it. It wasn't gore for gore. It was more creative gore. Like obviously the wolf scene where the grandma's getting eaten by wolves, it was over the top, but it was still like funny and kind of crazy to see. But the main idea that I'm talking about, where they were really creative with the gore and how the gore actually tied into the story and kind of made the whole narrative a little bit more challenging or more interesting, I guess, not challenging, is specifically with the Egyptian detective lady. She gets to Albuquerque. I don't know how she gets there. It's kind of like not explained. She just appears at the Albuquerque house. I don't even know why she's there, but that's a different thing. But she's at the Albuquerque house, and she gets attacked by the dead zombified grandma. The grandma's a zombie, and she attacks the detective lady. And what the zombie grandma does is coughs up this scorpion that crawls into the Egyptian detective's mouth, and now there's a scorpion in the Egyptian detective's mouth. First off, you're like, wow, shit, that was kind of gross. Definitely very gross. But then also, the Egyptian lady is trying to get the scorpion out, and she beats the grandma or whatever, and the scorpion's tail stabs through the Egyptian lady's throat, and you're like, oh shit, this girl's definitely dead. And then you see her pull out the scorpion out of her mouth with the tail still poking out of her neck, and you're like, oh shit. So now she's got a hole in her neck, and it's crazy because then you get to the next scene where the Egyptian lady has to do some chants, and these chants are to kind of end the entire movie and get the mummy into a different body. And so the Egyptian lady needs to do these chants. However, she can't because she's got a hole in her throat from the scorpion that was coughed up by the zombie grandma earlier. So now she's trying to give these chants to trap this demon into a different body. And what she has to do is poke her finger through her throat to cover up the hole, and then she gives these chants. That is just super creative, and I really respect that idea because it's just to come up with that idea and that combination of events, in my opinion, does take some creativity. And if that creativity could have been put towards the narrative or character motivations, it might have made the overall narrative and story and movie better as a whole. However, they put it towards the gore and kind of the events, so I guess that's fine, but that is where I really liked this movie and the crazy shit that goes down. And then another small positive I liked was the full happy ending at the end. A lot of horror movies, you're watching them and they do this cringe thing where the movie's low-key shit and they want to try and make the movie deep by having everybody die in the end or having, some major death or trying to tell some other theme or whatever about, They try and make the movie deep by having characters die. And I'm so happy that this movie did not do that. This movie actually had kind of a happy ending where the family is implied that they're gonna reunite and everybody's gonna be completely fine. They got the daughter back who was mummified for 8 years. Obviously that's bad, but they still got their whole family back. And the mummy is going into an evil lady who trapped and kidnapped the daughter. So there was a happy ending to the story. And I actually did like that because I wasn't really doing much with the story. So it would just kind of rub me the wrong way if they weren't doing that much deepness with the narrative and the story and they tried to make it deep with everybody dying or some other weird stuff. But instead they actually, just did a wholesome ending, wrapped it up. No, there's no sign that there's going to be a second Mummy 2, which is very nice to see that they're not trying to milk this franchise or whatever. So this movie really had no themes or story to stand on. So making it a happy ending and wrapping up everything with the lore and all this stuff, even though it didn't really fully explain the lore or really why the mummy was there in the first place or if the mummy is like a threat to humanity, it doesn't really explain that. But it does wrap up the story as a whole, which is nice to see. And you're not on the edge of your seat or thinking about some deep thing that definitely wasn't deep because this movie can't handle a deep topic. But yeah, that's it. Overall, I'd say decent horror movie. If you like horror movies, go check this one out. It's going to be a decent one. It's exactly how you describe it, like just decent. You're only going to watch this movie once and then you're done with it. You don't really, I'm not going to watch that movie again. It was all right. It was decent. It's a decent horror movie. I won't say it's a good horror movie. It's decent. It was a fun time. It felt like an hour and a half, but it was actually 2.5 hours. It's a time killer. It's nice. It's stimulating. Overall, decent movie. Check it out if you like horror movies. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you stopping by. Remember to like this video, subscribe, and share something in the comments. And specifically, if you like this video, share this with somebody you think would appreciate it. I've got tons of other reviews on my channel, so go check them out, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Peace and love. Ciao.